Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. We are the regular anchor of this program. Sana Maqbool is traveling once again, and it seems that this week, once again, you are stuck with me. So we are going to talk about more or less the same thing that we have been discussing for quite some time. Every day is a busy day, a busy news day, and we have seen how things have been unfolding. Today was the day when we were to learn whether the Election Commission of Pakistan has submitted a report regarding the fund supply by the federal government. So that took place, and we also had to learn whether the Punjab government or authorities have been able to provide Election Commission with the kind of securities or the kind of workforce that is needed to hold the elections in Punjab. So the answer on both sides seems to be no, because the money is still being debated in the parliament. But when you talk about the security staff, it is learned that out of against the demand for 300,000 people of personnel, the Punjab government can only muster up 75,000 people. So that is something that is going to be a huge issue of a discord or debate in coming days. We have to see whether it leads to some kind of political disruption or there can be some amicable way to resolve this problem. On the other side, we also saw, because yesterday, if you remember, we were covering and discussing the convention that was held in the National Assembly of Pakistan to commemorate the 50 years, the golden jubilee of country's constitution. There we also saw Qazi Faiz Isa, the senior puisne judge of the Supreme Court of Pakistan. He was also present, and then he also actually delivered a speech as well, in which he clarified that he had not come to a political event. He had come essentially to commemorate the Constitution of Pakistan. After that, we have seen people actually attacking him on social media. Politicians also tried to attack him as well. Then we saw clarification coming out from his office, and that clarification makes it plain that invitation was sent to all the judges of the Supreme Court, and his participation was not an endorsement of any kind of political positioning or political opinion of the government. But having said that, it becomes now very difficult not to address the elephant in the room. We have seen of late that many people have started acting against their character. For example, we saw Itazaz Ahsan Saab, the one leading light of the campaign for the restoration of judiciary, now siding with the Chief Justice of Pakistan. Because I know him as a friend, I have known him. The person I knew as a friend or as a teacher would have actually sided with Qazi Faiz Isa, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So that made me curious, and we have been asking questions. He is lawyer of a very important billionaire. That is not all. There are many other issues that actually circle around the very same billionaire whose case is being heard in NAB regarding the return of 190 million pounds sterling, and that is Malik Riaz. Then we also noticed that two people, Shahzad Akbar and Farah Gogi, have actually, they seem to have actually disappeared from the face of the earth. And those people were also sent out, at least the lady that I mentioned was sent out of this country on a plane of Barrier Town. So these issues become tricky, and then one has to ask, why is it that that particular person might be trying to undermine the system? By the way, the system is such that, if you have noticed in the past as well, media doesn't seem to report on the man or his company at all. And whenever some reporting takes place, it is essentially to praise the man or his policies. And regarding something else that was quite interesting, recently a chairman NAB actually resigned, and it was said that he actually did it hearing the voice of his conscience. And that gentleman, essentially, what we learned from the grapevine is that that person also retired or resigned for protecting Malik Riaz's cases. So if that is the situation, I think today, whatever is happening, there is a question about state within state. We are going to talk about all these matters and more. By the way, one more very important story that came out of Kashmir, and that was the Prime Minister of Kashmir was disqualified by the local High Commission. Now the question also arises whether that should be the case. I have never been a fan of Sardar Tanveer Ilyas, and I've been very critical. But I think that a body of unelected people disqualifying an elected Prime Minister, no matter whether he's an ATM, whether he's a rich bloke who might have actually bought his position, doesn't seem quite right. So we are going to talk about all these matters in order to help us understand these issues. In the studio, I'm joined by Naveed Aman Khan Sahab, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Then on Skype, we are joined by Muhammad Muneeb Qadir, who's a legal expert, a young man, but very boisterous and very vocal. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. And the third guest who joins us on Skype, I don't know whether he has joined. Oh, he has. I can see him. Dr. Niaz, who's a political analyst also, and a columnist of renown. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Thank you very much, all gentlemen, for joining us. Let me start with you, Naveed Sahab, and let me ask you how things are going to unfold regarding Election Commission's report.
Pitafi, in fact, it is the domain of Election Commission of Pakistan to hold the elections, and it's a political matter. Matter being solved, should have been solved between the executive and the Election Commission of Pakistan. Election Commission did not decide about the date, and it was decided by the judiciary. All the steps, all the working, all the orders were driven by the judiciary towards the executive and towards the Election Commission of Pakistan, which I don't think is a right way to proceed. But now, since the government has not extended or given that 21 billion rupees to Election Commission of Pakistan, which was asked by the judiciary. Now the Election Commission is not in a good position to hold the elections because of many reasons.
Right.
One,
it doesn't have money, it doesn't
have money,
manpower.
Doesn't have manpower.
And nobody talks about the judiciary supplying the ROs, which are not being
even judiciary itself is not in the position to provide that manpower which is required by the Election Commission of Pakistan. The armed forces are not in very good position to provide 300,000 personnel to Election Commission of Pakistan for the conduct of the elections. And same is the case with the education department and many other departments. I mean, at this stage, it looks very difficult. On the other day, last day you have.
But here's sorry to cut you, but here's a question that people critics of this position keep on asking. Now that the date that was announced by the Election Commission on its own was 8th October. Now the question is, there is going to be a general election throughout the country on that date or around that date. What if these services are not provided even then? Will we keep on lingering the elections?
It looks. I think the best way is to hold the elections on 8th of October, either of the National Assembly or of the Provincial Assembly, because it will be. I don't think it will be a wise decision to hold elections right now within a month and then go for the other elections after a couple of months.
But that wasn't my question. Allow me to actually bring in Dr. Niaz as well. Dr. Niaz, you have heard the discussion so far. First of all, do you think that this whole situation is going to unfold into another contempt or removal of a Prime Minister or a government by the Supreme Court of Pakistan? And secondly, regarding the situation as it is, do you think that when the opposition talks about indefinite possibility of delay, do you think that that is a serious concern as well?
Well, I mean, it's a very complicated situation. Ideally, of course, elections should be held on time according to the constitution. And I think as far as KP is concerned, that, you should hold any of the reasons that being given by the government about security, economy, the need to hold, provincial and national elections. They all have, a certain sense, but, they are not enough to, override the constitution unilaterally. Now, Punjab is, of course, a different matter. You can raise a question of whether Parvez Elahi was rightfully, legally, constitutionally elected as a chief minister, given the very wrong decisions given by the Supreme Court itself on the 63A matter, and then the de-seating of 25 PTI dissidents by the Election Commission, and then the refusal of the Election Commission to hear their appeals for 6 months. So yes, I mean, for Punjab, there is a good reason to revisit all those things and then see what the situation is. But for as far as KP is concerned, I think the election should go ahead. But I don't agree. I agree with you about what happened in Kashmir being wrong, and I don't think prime minister should be removed like this on trivial matters, something like contempt of court, that too on a first instance. But I think the real need is for for there to be dialogue first of all within the Supreme Court. I think there is a need for a full court to be called and to look at the series of these discussions, decisions starting from 63A interpretation, then the Election Commission decision, and so on, and then come to a solution. And similarly, there should be dialogue between the opposition and the government, and they need to come to some sort of an agreement. Otherwise, this situation is going to the fact of the matter is that the decisions that have that the Supreme Court have given are wrong, but they have a legal cover because they come from the Supreme Court. And if the government goes against that, even if in a political sense and a moral sense it's right, it will be violating the constitution, legality, and all. So it's a very tricky situation, and the right way is to have a political dialogue between the government and opposition, and to have a full court look at all these things.
Right. A political dialogue also between the government and the court, especially the four-member bench that actually has been usurping a lot of powers. Because, of course, they are also a political element now, whether they like it or not, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, certain judges are behaving very politically. There's no doubt about it. There's no other explanation for the way, the 63A decision was given, and the fact that, the appeal of 25 PTI dissident wasn't heard for 6 months. On other cases, they open court at midnight, but this appeal wasn't heard. So yeah, certainly, that's valid. But then you can't have a dialogue between judges and politicians. That's between PTI and the government for them to come to some agreement, and then similarly for the honorable judges to sit together and call a full court and look at the whole thing in a very holistic manner.
Yeah, that is quite interesting that the Supreme Court of Pakistan keeps on asking political parties to sit together, where it seems that honorable justices have not been able to pull off that miracle on their own regarding their own benches as well. Let me bring in Muneeb Qadir Saab. Regarding what was being said earlier, Muneeb, let me ask you, what is the worst case scenario in this case if the government doesn't seem to cooperate with the election commission, or election commission cannot cooperate with this judiciary or follow its dictates? What happens then?
All right. So I don't think that it's a matter of if. I think we're actually seeing this happen, that the government hasn't quite, I mean, technically speaking, they have not cooperated with the Supreme Court judgment because they had to issue funds to the ECP through the to the federal consolidated funds, and they haven't done that. Instead, Mr. Sagdar has brought a bill within the parliament seeking funds from the government. Now, a deadline was given of 10th April, and that's now gone. So as far as one can see, I don't think that the government is in any mood to cooperate. And the judiciary, predictably, what they would do is they would seek to, charge contempt of court. And in its own turn, the judiciary, these three judges, who are on the bench, they are very much under scrutiny right now because one just gets to know that a reference has been moved against them in the for misconduct. And now, if the government is under scrutiny, then so is the judiciary. So there is a bit of a tug of war between the institutions, which is most unfortunate.
Nuances, that is not a reference, that is essentially a complaint against these justices, right?
Pitafi, I would add in.
Very quickly,
Yes, but
yeah.
that is exactly the complaint which there is. So they are under scrutiny or the other. And coming to the ECP and whether they would comply or not. Now, ECP has raised a very important issue, and they've shed light on something which is very important right now, that the constitution has to be interpreted as a whole. Now, what the judges have done is that they've looked at the 90-day limit, the time period under Article 224. But the ECP says that if looked at within the light of Article 218, which requires there to be free and fair election, having regard to all the circumstances prevalent at the time of the said election, the ECP is empowered and is to be empowered in determining at what time free and fair election can be ensured. And so in that regard, the ECP is also, moved for proposals of amending the law, of amending the Election Act, particularly sections 57 and 58, to give ECP a unilateral discretion on determining when and how to postpone the election date without needing any permission or consent from the president. So right now, like I said, ECP, the government, the judiciary, they all seem to be embroiled in a very controversial stance where each one of them are pulling in different directions.
And very quickly, Muneeb Sahab, let me also ask you that Election Commission of Pakistan actually wrote a letter to the Parliament as well a couple of days ago, where it was pointed out that Election Commission has been made dysfunctional by the judiciary's intervention, and that there must be some lawmaking to restore those powers. Now, the question at this moment is that the way or the speed with which this three-member bench actually keeps on appropriating other departments' powers. First, it was Election Commission, then we saw the Defense Department, then Interior, then Finance Ministry, and now it seems that it is going to perhaps try to oust the incumbent setup as well. Do you think that this is, in any democracy, this is a normal behavior?
Absolutely not. I might be getting a bit theoretical, but legal professors and jurists such as H.L.A. Hart, they have a lot of times mentioned the fact that if there is a breakup on the official level, I mean, if, for instance, the executive and the judiciary, they are at loggerheads, then that is a threat to the whole dismantling of a legal system. So, I mean, it may sound extreme, but if this between the institutions, unfortunately, we headed in a very, I think, problematic direction, and one which is unprecedented in our history. So I think that, yes, it also, a lot of responsibility falls on the judiciary as well to draw the line, to exercise restraint, and not to intervene too much in political matters. There are some powers which are for the executive to be exercised, and those are policy matters. And
that was my actual concern. But allow me, Muneeb Sahab, to come back to the studio. Let me very quickly ask Naveed Aman Khan Sahab. Sir, is it normal behavior for judiciary in any democracy? Because we don't see this kind of micromanaging where Supreme Court is, despite battling within itself, is also instructing other departments how to actually conduct their business, especially when it comes to one province. By the way, there are two messages that we are getting. One, the only province that matters in this country, at least to this three-member bench, is Punjab. No other province matters. Similarly, lower judiciary has no value in front of the superior judiciary, or especially few benches which are like-minded and pro-PTI.
It is true that it's not
normal behavior?
It's not a normal behavior in entire world. In Pakistan, it is very common. We have experienced or we have observed it for the last 50 years. We have been observing it. One day or the other, the judiciary intervenes and the Prime Minister is disqualified. Many experiences are there in Pakistan. And it will be very unfortunate today if Prime Minister of Azad Kashmir is disqualified and on the other day the Prime Minister of Pakistan is disqualified. It will create another administrative and constitutional crisis in Pakistan once again.
But again, very interestingly, this aspect of PM being disqualified, right? You know, mashallah, we have a very healthy, very big cabinet in this country right now. And there seems to be one principle that was laid down by the Supreme Court of Pakistan itself, no one else, that the responsibility belongs to the cabinet, not to the Prime Minister alone. So do you think that if in this case, even if the Supreme Court doesn't go after the Parliament, it is perhaps going to disqualify the entire cabinet? Can it do it?
I don't think. In this case, Shahbaz Sharif as a Prime Minister, I don't think the judiciary will be in the position to disqualify him right now, because we have experienced and we have observed that the judiciary has been siding a political party. And judiciary or the judges need not to be on side of any political party. They need to decide or they need to go for the decisions based on merit and on the constitution, not on based on the inner self. It's not their personal matter, it's a constitutional and it's a national matter. So I don't think because the judiciary has been siding PTI, and now if they go against
when you say judiciary, you particularly are talking about a few like-minded judges, especially at the center.
We are referring to those judges.
And also in Punjab.
Yes, we are referring to those judges. Yes, of course. In Lahore High Court, in Supreme Court of Pakistan, we have seen such influence, which is, I think, very unfortunate. Judiciary is there for justice, based on constitution. If they don't honor the constitution, who else will honor the constitution? The lawmakers, the parliamentarians, a common man, the bureaucracy. Nobody will go for to obey the constitution if the judiciary itself is not going to follow it.
Right. But earlier when I was talking to Muneeb Saab, you wanted to add to something at that moment as well. Do you want to still do it?
That moment has gone now.
Okay, okay. But regarding trichotomy of power, do you think that at this moment all the institutions which are there, especially the three pillars of state, are they cognizant of the trichotomy of power, and do you think that they actually believe in it in principle?
It is a reality that judiciary, executive and the establishment, they are the main pillars of power in Pakistan.
Establishment is not supposed to be pillar of state, right? It is part of the executive. There are three, right? The Mukannana, that is the legislature, the judiciary and the executive.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But I think the
and then if you want to talk about fourth, it can be Malik Riaz.
Yeah. Malik Saab has become, a big tycoon.
No, not tycoon. The problem is, it is important to know what is the definition of real power. If you want to know about anybody who wields power, just see who is not allowed to be criticized. You can go to a private channel, you can criticize army chief, you can criticize DGISI, Prime Minister, anybody, not Malik Riaz.
Absolutely right. And those who have used Malik Riaz, I don't think it was a very good gesture from executive point of view.
Right. Very quickly, let me go back to Muneeb Saab. Regarding trichotomy of power, sir, do you think that in principle all the forces that are involved, especially the three pillars of state, they agree in principle that there should be trichotomy of power, or do you think that the current bench that wields all the power does not believe in it?
Uh, Unfortunately, we cannot look at the current events on a standalone basis. We have to look at it in context that the judiciary has, particularly after the lawyers' movement, played a very, as they say, active role. And so they have been ousting prime ministers, disqualifying potential prime ministers, and quite much been shaping up the political landscape of the country. Now, it's judicial restraint on the one hand, yes.
But you are laying a lot of blame on a lawyers' movement. If I recall correctly, the hanging of a
Yes.
prime minister of Pakistan was before lawyers' movement, right? And there were prime
That's
ministers which were disqualified in the past as well by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Yes. But there's been a renewed energy, when it comes to politicization, because now it's, I don't know, you may disagree with me on this, but I think that which particular member of the judiciary seems to be tilted towards which particular political party only became more apparent in the last couple of years following the lawyers' movement. I mean, even during the lawyers' movement, you could see which political parties' flags were being waved while they were protesting and when they were rallying and the streets. So that in itself set down a very fertile ground for politicization of judiciary. And I think that politicians are also now looking at sympathetic judges in order to get the outcome that they want. And from a point of view, that just sets a very dangerous precedent.
Justice in the past, recent past, after the lawyers' movement might have aligned with which party. When you say this, I don't see any exceptions, with the exception perhaps of PTI. It was the only time when our senior judiciary did not seem to be that active, with the exception of dam funds and all. Otherwise, PDM governments were given hell by the senior judiciary.
Yes, that's true as well. That is also true. But again, there was interference in politics one way or the other, because during People's Party government, I remember that, People's Party would come up with a legislation, they would come up with an executive act, and that would be set aside by the judiciary. So they were still at loggerheads. So somehow or the other, either in favor of or either against the incumbent government, the judiciary has always been involved in politics. And from a separation of powers point of view, this then becomes very problematic. And I'm very glad that Justice Qazi Faiz Isa yesterday in the parliament, he made it clear that he was not there on any political agenda, but he was representing the judiciary, as was befitting on the occasion of celebration, Golden Jubilee celebration of the Constitution itself. And I'm glad that he was representing the judiciary. It's very unfortunate that even our media, the way that they...
Absolutely, Muneeb Saab, you cannot actually blame the media because it doesn't have agency when it comes to whom to attack. Their policy is made by the owners, and we have seen how that actually translates. But let me go back to Dr. Niaz Mirza, especially because the case of Justice Qazi Faiz Isa, Dr. Saab, is very important. It seems that despite doing nothing wrong, the a peaceful right to assembly is part of the Constitution, and he did not go to any forbidden area. He went to the Parliament of Pakistan, but instead of demanding explanations from others, a person who has been literally victimized in the past 4 or 5 years seems to be giving explanations. Why did he actually go there to the Parliament of Pakistan? How fair is that?
Well, I think all the judges should have come. It was an extremely historic moment, 50 years of our constitution. We struggled, for ages to have a constitution. It took 25 years. So yes, it was a historic moment, and I think all the judges should have gone there. And, that would have led to, some rapprochement and lowering of, the political temperatures. But unfortunately, the majority of the judges decided not to go. So that left him, hanging out. It would have been better, if 3 or 4 other judges at least would have gone, and, if they had, kept their distance from the politician, the image of him sitting right next to, the politicians. I think that's rankled a few people. But still, I mean, it's not of the same nature of,
Dr. Niaz Mirza, sorry to cut you again, but whatever you are saying is correct. But do you think that only Qazi Faiz Isa is responsible for that? Because if other judges did not go, it is their bad. If the Speaker of National Assembly decided to sit him among politicians, it is his call and he made it, although we can disagree with it. But why is it that Qazi Faiz Isa is giving explanations? And today there was a meeting between Chief Justice Bandyal as well, who seems to be amazingly, I have never heard a case where a petitioner has gone to Supreme Court to withdraw a case and the Chief Justice actually decides that he is going to A, hear the case in his chamber, B, also reserve the judgment like a hanging sword of Damocles, so that it can be used for any kind of political leverage in the coming days.
Yeah, no, I agree. As I said, in the beginning, all the judges should have gone there. So it's unfortunate that, the majority of the judges decided not to go, and that, left Qazi Isa hanging out. But then, given all that, I think he should have, kept his distance from the politicians, maybe, sit in the guests gallery or something. That would have been, more in line with his stature as, the leading judge, in my opinion, somebody who's, fought a lot of battles for the supremacy of the law. And I have a lot of respect for him. So I would say, it's a minor thing. I mean, I wouldn't compare it with what, the other judges are doing in terms of giving extremely politicized judgments.
Dr. Saab, when you come to the studio, and you have been a regular guest on my programs when I used to host an entire show, at that time too, was it not my call to decide where you sit rather than yours?
Well, I also have a choice, of course. If you put me in a corner, I can always.
No, you can walk out, I give you that. But when it comes to lighting and the camera, it is my decision where you sit in the program, right? Or the producer's decision. So why is it that you should be blamed for where you were sitting?
Because, I have the choice of, walking out if I don't like where you're putting me, as you said yourself. Anyway, it's a minor matter. I think the bigger issue is, how, certain judges, including the Chief Justice, are behaving, the kind of judgments that they are giving. That's a much bigger issue. This is a minor issue compared to that. And I think that's what.
Right. I mean, Naveed Saab, I'm coming to you, sir. And I want to actually understand. My concern, I would have not actually mentioned Malik Riaz or the people he has been using over the years to get whatever he wanted. I have never, hardly ever mentioned even Farrukh Gogi or Fatah Shahzadi in this program when I have a chance. But my concern is that all these people attacking someone good like Qazi Faiz Isa and the justices who have actually recently proven through their acumen that they are actually standing with the Constitution. I mean, how much realpolitik can you play with the state institutions just to save your 190 million pounds? Naveed Saab?
Yes, of course. I agree. And to save that big money, what Malik Riaz has played his role is, I don't think it's a decent way to move ahead in the judiciary or in the executive. The government should not, I think, spare such examples or precedents. What has been done in the past, in the former government of PTI, should not be spared.
Right, but my question essentially was not merely about one man. My question essentially was about the justices who are being attacked just because you don't seem to agree with their judicial position, while they are the people who might be most competent and who have a history of standing on the right side of history.
Absolutely right. We can give the example of Justice Shaukat Siddiqui in Islamabad High Court, and
I was talking about the current
now if we take the example of Justice Faiz Isa, who is on the right side, and the other judges, many other judges,
Athar Minallah.
Athar Minallah is also Mandokhel is there.
Yeah, Justice Mansoor Ali Khan.
Mansoor Ali Khan. They are
Mansoor Ali Shah.
Mansoor Ali,
Sorry,
Mansoor
I
Ali Shah
ended
sahab.
up talking about an anchor.
Mansoor Ali Shah
Go ahead.
sahab. They have very good rapport in judiciary and as well as in the society of Pakistan because of their balanced behavior, because of their decisions based on the constitution. I have never seen that they have ever gone against the constitution. Their decisions speaks.
And very quickly, let me ask you another thing that actually comes back to an analyst and a journalist, right? As a journalist, we are trained to actually go for both sidism, try to be balanced, right? But there are moments when there is one correct side and one visibly wrong side, right? Should we even then try to balance out things and say that there is a conflict between two groups of justices rather than saying that, look, here is a group of justices whose arguments have actually convinced me that they are correct people, they are on the right side, and I will not play this balancing act.
There should be a balanced.
So even if there should be a balance, even if this is a clear-cut matter of black and white.
It is, but I don't think things will go in a right direction in future, in near future, as far as the judiciary is concerned. The Chief Justice of Pakistan will have to play a positive role. He should not be party to the situation. It should be, and the bench in particular, the 3-member bench should not be the party. If they
no, but I'm asking a question about you and I, right? We keep on trying to balance things out, and it seems that on both sides something is wrong. When I can see with my own eyes, at least as a student of constitution, as a student of judicial history of this country, that one side is doing everything which doesn't actually add up. 4 plus 3 does not compute as 5. We have seen that you have not been able to come up with a judicial order by the end of the day because you keep on asking the majority to pretend that it is a minority. We can do mathematics, can't we?
Absolutely. The number game is very important. If you shuffle the number game,
I'm not talking about number game. I'm talking about mathematics.
Mathematically, yes, of course.
Simply, I mean, tell me, there's new set of mathematics, and now 4 plus 3 would mean that it is equal to 5.
It cannot be equal to 5.
Yeah.
It is 7.
Yeah.
So if you make 4 3 is equal to 5, it will not work,
Yeah.
and it will give impression that you are malafide and you are party to the situation.
Yeah.
And if you are party to the situation, you are not allowed to be the party to the situation because you are spoiling the situation.
Right.
And it is the fate of 250 million people of Pakistan.
Right.
It's not a joke.
Right.
And I
don't know where you get her 250 million number. Last I checked, we were not even to 10 million, but we might have exceeded that number.
Still, the census is going on.
Yeah. When it comes to mathematics, I believe that I'm a purist. But let me go back to Muneeb Saab. Muneeb Saab, at this moment, the concern seems to be that things are not right. And I must say that even when it comes to political parties, you might have seen a slight change of emphasis. Now there are particular political parties that seem to be actually emphasizing need for a grand national dialogue, or for that matter, dialogue between PTI and the government, especially People's Party. From what we hear, again, the Malik Saab factor seems to be playing its role, and but two People's Parties credited, it seems to be repulsing that pressure, and it is not actually totally swallowing the argument hook, line and sinker. But at this moment, do you think that there is any chance of any kind of rapprochement within the bench or within political space?
far as they being a cross-party talk and the opposition sitting with the government, I really don't think that the political parties, I mean, on the one hand PDM and on the other PTI, they are in any mood to talk because I mean, symbolically, the PTI did not show up in the parliament yesterday. They did not show up even for one of the most important events in our history, celebration of the 50 years of constitution. And then the interior minister Rana Sanaullah, his statements are also not very conducive to an amiable and a friendly environment for talks. So unfortunately, there is going to be this political wrangling through either PTI street power or through PDM's relatively, I mean, hostile statements towards the PTI. And the courts are also, like I've said previously, embroiled in this controversy to the extent that it's shameful that I saw some footage that Justice Qazi Faiz Isa, when he was walking out of the parliament and into the Supreme Court building, he was being hounded and heckled by a lot of hostile media, particularly pro-PTI media, who are trying to ask him questions. And now those very same people on social media are sharing that footage and saying, look, the Supreme Court Justice, he doesn't have anything to say. He's unable to say anything, forgetting the very basic rule of journalistic ethics, which is that judges should not be questioned. Judges are not to speak to the media and not supposed to be giving them press bites. So it's very unfortunate the way that the judiciary is also being dragged into this political turmoil that we're seeing right now. And turmoil is the right word, because there just seems to be no way out. Now, we're also listening to the interior minister saying that perhaps election may not even take place in October. So what's the road ahead? How does one move forward?
Again, because twice you have mentioned the interior minister. Again, I'm not a great fan of Rana Sanaullah Sahab. I've been very critical of him in the past. But to his credit, that statement was nullified in the next statement that he gave in the very same interview. But apart from that also, it seems funny that we are actually taking an exception to his comments when PTI keeps on giving. It is a gift that keeps on giving. Very harsh statements keep on coming from Imran Khan Saab and his party's senior officials. But that is how things are. I get what you mean, by the way. Very quickly, Dr. Niaz Murtaza, let me ask you to conclude your comments, your thoughts.
Well, I hope, the political temperature goes down, because right now, we seem to be headed right towards the cliff. And the unfortunate thing is, you expect politicians, they deal with society, they have all the, pressures of society on them. So you can, not condone, but understand if they behave in a certain manner. But, the judiciary is, deliberately kept away from society. It's supposed to behave in a different manner. They have a professional background, education. And, if they fight like, politicians do, then, what hope is there for this society to have, the rule of law? So the utmost importance is for, the judiciary to, sort out its problems, have the full court called, and, take a holistic view, look at all the bad decisions that have been given, and try to, sort out the mess. And that would, similarly, give a message out to the politicians for them to, also sort out their problems. But dialogue is the only way forward if we are to avoid, more political chaos.
Absolutely, but that is very pithy and kind of you to actually come up with those comments. Naveed Saab, very quickly, I'm told that we are left with 1 minute, 1.5 minutes. Please, your conclusion.
I think the decision of the participation of Qazi Faiz Isa in the parliament, it was a good decision.
Not parliament, in the convention.
In the convention, yes, of course. It was very good decision, and he went there for the constitution. It was the commemoration.
And he was honored there.
Yes, he was honored, and he was invited, and all the judges were invited. But those who did not participate, they became the party of the situation. But what he played role, his role has always been very positive. That in convention or in the judiciary.
Muneeb, right, sir, absolutely. Muneeb sir, very quickly, your conclusion, sir.
That you mentioned PTA have not been very to talks, and that is very unfortunate, because I think that even when the government extends the olive branch to PTI, somehow they appear to be intransigent on they always say that we are ready to talk to the establishment. So until this is not from both the ends, particularly PTI's end, unfortunately, we're going to be stuck in the situation that we find ourselves in.
Right. So, once again, thank you very much, Muneeb Saab, for being part of the program. Naveed, Aman Khan Saab, thank you very much. Dr. Niaz, Murtaza, thank you very much for your precious time as well. We have listened to our participants. Right now, I'm not going to actually offer any detailed extra, but I want to actually, because somehow I'm told that my comments also find their way to Imran Khan Saab and other politicians. Let me very humbly, suggest to Imran Khan Saab that he should by now have learned that he is not being advised well when it came to army chief's appointment. At that time also, trying to play gamble, opposing one man who had the best chance of becoming an army chief was not good, real politics or power politics. Similarly, right now also it seems that some of his advisors want to drag him down a path where he might actually end up confronting the next Chief Justice of Pakistan and perhaps the people who come after him as well. So it is not good advice. At least Imran Khan Sahib should be reaching across the aisle or reaching across the regular divides of tribalism to get some advice from people who know something about this situation. It seems that at this moment, like in the past, he has been used by other people, and that's why he is the only one in his own circle of influence that keeps on losing more than anybody else. I hope he understands that. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.